We are live and hanging out here for another partner spotlight. And I'm here with my friend Vance Lee. And Vance has a pretty cool story. First of all, he recently sent me some really cool coffee cups. And I thought these things were super weird, and then I became kind of obsessed with them. And I'm imagining that happens with a lot of these people that you send these coffee cups to. But anyway, we'll talk a little bit about coffee and how you invented this really interesting coffee thing. But before that, Vance promised to tell us how he has gotten over $200,000 in pre-orders before he even made an order with his supplier. So I want to know all the secrets. We're going to pull all of Vance's secrets out today. Before we get into that, though, Vance, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you and who you are?
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. This is really exciting. Excited to jam with you again. So, I'm Vance, and I started e-commerce back in 2015, and this is when FBA was. I mean, obviously, that's you had a lot more experience than that, but back then FBA was at its like core prime, where everybody was super excited to get into FBA, and that's when I jumped in around that time. And I first started with Amazon FBA. My first product was product research and thought, okay, let's sell this. And that first product did really, really well. And what ended up happening was I said, okay, well, that happened in 2015, end of 2015. And 2016, I said, hey, I'm going to launch 12. Well, I said 15, but the goal was to launch 12 to 15 products that year with my business partner. And we just went off and into it. And at the end, near the middle to end of this year was, for those of you that have been around since then, that's when Amazon changed their terms of service from being able to allow honest unbiased reviews, and they cut that off. So that was my kind of, that was my first shock from, having a specific launch strategy and going into Amazon and saying, well, Amazon is not going to allow this anymore. So that's kind of what allowed me to kind of explore outside of Amazon. So that led me to Shopify, and eventually that led me to doing pre-orders on crowdfunding and Kickstarter, which we're going to talk about today. But I launched my very, very first Kickstarter campaign near the end of 2016 with a product that I intended to launch originally on Amazon. So it was already very, very much in the development process. We had the prototypes and it was almost ready for production, and it was going to be a big, big investment. And we had this very clear strategy how we would want to launch this on Amazon. But because that didn't work, we got scared and we had no idea what to do to launch this product. So that brought me to crowdfunding. And I launched this product on crowdfunding, and it was a cold brew coffee maker. So we called this the Arctic, and it was at the time we were a little bit ahead for coffee products and specifically cold brew, and launched this product, and it ended up doing about 650,000 on Kickstarter and another 300 plus on Indiegogo, which is another crowdfunding platform that we'll talk a little bit about later on, and that was my first entry point into seeing that it's possible to do pre-orders and it's possible to launch a product off Amazon that could eventually scale to Amazon or scale to Shopify or wherever else on e-commerce. But it became an alternative launch strategy that allowed me to get cash flow. And since then, I've launched a handful of my products on Amazon, and I've supported a lot of people in launching products on Kickstarter, and supported a lot of people launching products on Kickstarter as well. So I've launched we've made about $7 million of successful launches from our own campaigns and the people that we've worked with. And 2 of my own campaigns have raised over $1.2 million and had a lot of success with those products afterwards. So that's kind of my story from e-commerce to crowdfunding.
I love it. Okay, I have a ton of questions for you that I know that everybody wants to know, because I've been asked all these questions before. I have clients that come to me all the time. They're like, Amy, I want to do Kickstarter. And I'm like, no. No, you can't do Kickstarter. So my first question for you is, isn't Kickstarter hard? Like, you need a marketing plan. You need to have some of your own leads. You need to be pretty good at marketing. And oh, by the way, what about the product? Like, doesn't the product have to be something special? Like, if people can just go buy it on Amazon or a similar product on Amazon, why would they give to a crowdfunding campaign? So those are my questions. Like, why Kickstarter, and isn't it hard? And what products do you need for that?
Great question. So Well, first, I want to address three main FAQs that come up generally right before anybody even asks these the questions you're asking, which are awesome questions, by the way. So the first thing is, what is Kickstarter, and is it a platform that replaces Amazon or Shopify? The answer here, Kickstarter is not a platform like Walmart.com, or it's not another platform that you're going to be selling on long term. So it doesn't replace Amazon. The idea here is Kickstarter is a launch platform. So for those of you, the idea here is we're using Kickstarter as kind of like the addition to our strategy to launch, and then after that, after we get the success from that and the results and the cash flow and the proof, then the way to move into, let's say, Amazon with a little bit before we do that, and we'll talk in a few minutes. But that's the first question that I usually get. What is Kickstarter? Like, how does it really work? Is it like just another platform that I have to figure out and put a lot of work into like, if Amazon's intimidating enough, then nobody wants to figure out Kickstarter. So that's just the first question that I get. And then the next question, which I kind of answered already, which is, can you launch on Amazon or Shopify or wherever else you want to launch on afterwards? And the answer is yes. This is just a peripheral launch platform that you can use to move into other platforms after, or if you want to do retail or whatever it is that you want to do. The idea here is you can go from Kickstarter to wherever else you want to go. And the last question actually is you asked. This is a part of this is the top three. Is, do you need to have a crazy, or does Kickstarter work for X niche or Y? And the high level answer is that you don't need anything extremely crazy innovative. It needs to stand out, and we'll talk about what that's going to look like in a second. But the idea here is it needs to be different enough for people to be interested in wanting to support that and wait a little bit rather than buying it directly on Amazon. So and it works for all sorts of categories, and we'll go into some examples of what this might look like for for certain categories that we've worked with, and the super interesting ones that that have done well, which you wouldn't expect it. Amy. I think in general, the idea here is that, well, sorry, what was your very, very first question?
So Vance, your internet is breaking up quite a bit. It's connected and then it's not connected. So it's some of your stuff is breaking up, but usually it catches up a little bit. Now it seems to be back again. So I caught nearly all of that except for the last part. So the idea is lots of different products work on Kickstarter, as you're explaining, not just like brand new products, because people, the way I'm understanding is there's like fans of Kickstarter. So they like would rather kind of support and follow a brand and follow a story. And I know from marketing and branding and teaching marketing and branding that people love a background story. They like to be involved. So that would be a reason why they might buy from Kickstarter and support a brand, even if they can find a similar product on Amazon, right? So that's a really good argument and it makes sense. And I love that you're going to give us some ideas. But if I do have a more unique product, I know one of the biggest concerns for Amazon sellers, in fact, this technique is taught all over the place. One of the biggest concerns is copycats. What about copycats? So I put my unique product on Kickstarter, and now all of a sudden I've got all these knockoffs because people use Kickstarter for product research all the time. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a really good question. So we get this question a lot as well. And I think the answer to this is that the biggest company in the world, Apple, produces these headphones. I don't have the Apple headphones right now, but the corded headphones, or even the ones that go into your ear, and they have dozens of Chinese counterfeits for those types of products. So the reason I say this is that, if you have a good product and you have a good product idea and it's something that people like, whether you launch it on Kickstarter or on Amazon or Shopify, if it becomes successful and people find it and they really want to copy it, that's not really going to, it's even the biggest company in the world can't stop people from copying the products. So in this situation, our goal here is to use Kickstarter as a way to start building a real brand and building a community and building an audience that support your product, so that when it actually comes to, when there's a situation like with us, we actually had some Chinese manufacturers copy us and start trying to sell on AliExpress. And it was actually our customers that brought this to our attention and said, hey, we came across this. we came across somebody trying to steal your product idea. And that product didn't end up doing well for this person that tried to copy us. But the idea here is when you start building an audience and a community, these people kind of become the moat, and people really care about the brand when they're supporting products like this. So at the end of the day, they were really excited to support our product, and so they really cared about the experience when it comes to interacting with our brand. So that's something that really kind of is your first defense, having people that really care about. That's going to a massive thing that allows to be successful over some random copy product.
Got it. That makes sense. I love it. Okay. So we have to always deal with copycats, honestly, like whether you're, I'll never forget, I launched my patented product on Amazon, and like within a month, I had people selling it on eBay, drop shipping it in Canada, all these issues all over the place. And it was just not a fun situation. So I'm just like I was very nervous about that. But at the end of the day, I was the holder of the patent. I was the holder of the trademark. So I used my normal legal methods to at least shut down the people that could have caused harm. And then the rest of them, I just kind of like left be, like the ones that were just being copycats because they were popping up all over, they were selling my product. So it was like, okay, you got to pick your battles sometimes, right? So yeah, that makes sense. I like it. Okay.
Exactly.
Talk to me about some of the most, popular products that you could do on Kickstarter. We're really like, how do you even decide whether or not your product idea is a good thing to consider for Kickstarter?
So this is a great question. I want to show an example. So people watching might not necessarily know what Kickstarter looks like or how the platform works. So I want to use this as an opportunity to answer your question and also show an example of a campaign that we had supported to launch and show you kind of what the Kickstarter platform looks like. So I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Your internet is like in and out and in and out. So I'm really hoping that this works.
I'm so sorry.
Guys who are watching us right now, if you can comment on whether or not you can hear everything okay, that would be really great.
How do I share screen, Amy? I don't see that button anymore. I did see it earlier.
I think you have to click the stop sharing button because I do have your one slide already being shared. So
Perfect. Okay. And then now I can choose a different screen, or?
Yeah, you should be able to choose a different screen, or you can. I'm not sure why you don't see the share screen. And now we've lost you completely. Oh no, Vance! I don't know where you went. We lost you. All right. Well, the show must go on. Yeah, everybody. Vance is having some issues with his internet today, and this is a new thing. He hasn't had issues with this before, so we were hoping that it would work. Now we're back to 5. So I have this one that I can show on stream right now. Vance, this one here, your Google Slides. Did you want to show this, or did you want to show a different stream?
Let me see if this works. If I could pop something above that. Okay, perfect.
So perfect.
Perfect. So we'll just do that from now on. Okay. So this is one of my favorite examples of kind of a category that you don't really expect to do well. So like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of different categories of products that can do well on Kickstarter, and we'll talk about kind of how to. One of the most important things, which Amy, you hinted at, was how can we get a product to stand out, and how can we make that work? So I'm going to walk through a framework a little later on, and that's going to show us how to actually position or decide if a product is going to be something that's going to be appealing to run on Kickstarter. So this is a really good example of an interesting campaign that we helped launch, and this one was essentially, she was a solo female entrepreneur who was a chef. and she'd never launched anything on e-commerce before. And she had this idea for hot sauce, and she came to us and we had a conversation, and we said, why not try launching this on Kickstarter and see if you can get some support to get some funding and get some cash before you start rolling this out and kind of going about like a traditional way of rolling out this product to retail and all those other channels. So she ended up launching this product on Kickstarter, did about $120,000 here on funds raised over our campaign, and that led to about 1,600 backers. So 1,600 people supported her Kickstarter campaign. So what you're looking at here is the Kickstarter campaign page. So this would be equivalent to your Amazon product listing page, where you tell people about your product, and this is where they look at it, they decide, hey, I'm interested and I want to support you, and they jump in and they support you. So since then, this is the crazy part of the story. So since then, she had the successful campaign, and she took this success, and not only was she able to build a massive brand from it, she was able to continue building her community. So what she did was she decided to expand on this by creating a lot of different types of content. She has about 100,000 followers on Instagram right now, which is really, really massive for hot sauce. This isn't like a clothing brand. This isn't like a funny meme account. This is literally a hot sauce brand, and these are not these are not paid followers. She actually has a lot of engagement. Like, this is 2,000 likes on her boiling dumplings in this like hot pot. So really, really interesting to be able to kind of do that. She released about a on at the moment. And Amy, can you see this? Hello.
Yeah, we
Oh,
hear
perfect.
you. You said
Okay.
she is only selling products on Amazon at the moment, you mentioned.
Oh, from what ended up happening was she actually took this, and because she had success with this campaign, she actually took this, and not everybody has to go through this path, but she took the successful results of this campaign, and she actually got some funding from it from a strategic investor. And from that, she was able to take this and launch this on Amazon. She launched this on her own website as well, and follower or 100 every single month on our website. And we'll see if this loads.
Wow.
Here. But yeah, so she has 100,000 monthly visits on her regular. This is a hot sauce, right? This is not a clothing brand. It's nothing that you think is super. And in fact, hot sauces, I mean, if you buy this at a Chinese grocery store at the bottom shelf of the grocery store, it's like $2, and you can see that she's selling this for close to $20, $18 for a can of hot sauce. And since then, the coolest thing is this: she actually was able to launch this on not only on e-commerce on her own website and Amazon, but she brought this to Target, Costco, and the hardest one of all, she got into
Whole Foods. Wow. Yeah. Okay, that's
exactly
so
to get
cool.
funding, but also at the same time, exactly, yeah, it's super,
And
super,
that's
super,
something
super cool.
that there's something to show for that, because if you can, when you're trying to get backers, when you can say like, hey, I was backed by, I raised over $200,000 on Kickstarter, I raised $500,000 on Kickstarter. I have a friend who just invented a portable bidet, like and he was able to raise over $200,000 on Kickstarter in pre-orders. And, that is something to show for it. Like, then when you go for investors, you can show them like, hey, we already proved this. Like, before we even delivered the orders, people gave us money. Like, they want this product. And so it's just really exciting. I used GoFundMe when I was launching my product, and I was able to get 61 pre-orders. And for me, that was perfect. Like, that was exactly what I needed to like really boost my my Amazon sales from the very beginning, get that feedback where I had their email address and I could do all of that. I wish I would have done it on Kickstarter, because I think I would have had more orders, because people kept asking. They're like, I don't understand why you went with GoFundMe. I don't get the GoFundMe thing. Like, they didn't really understand, even though GoFundMe has that platform for raising pre-orders. they didn't understand it. So it was like me doing a lot of selling. So where if I would have had that on Kickstarter and did the same marketing efforts that I did with GoFundMe, I probably would have at least doubled my pre-orders.
I think so, yeah. And because Kickstarter has its own audience as well, product.
Oh no. So Vance, you're frozen again. So I'm gonna hide your screen, because maybe it's your screen sharing at the same time. Your bandwidth might just be like tough today. I'm not sure what's going on.
How's that?
Okay. So yeah, I think those were really, really great examples. I think you're back. So for now, we could hide and see if we can keep you here for a moment to answer a few questions. So I get it. You don't have to have a special product. You really can grow a following simply by using this this method. And you if you are worried about copycats, you're going to have copycats no matter where you go when you have something successful and people are backing you. But the difference is people aren't backing the copycats. So, so you're going to have a better opportunity than the copycats, because you're going to be better at marketing and you're actually going to develop a following using this process. So I think that's really, really great and something to consider. So what are those key questions that people should be asking to decide whether or not they should try a pre-launch? Should they ever just try a pre-launch? I guess is a really easy, quick question. Like, should I ever just throw it up on Kickstarter and see what happens? Or do I really need to prepare and be answering some questions before doing that?
Sure. And I think like with any other business venture and any other project that you take on, it's pretty important to ask some good questions before you jump into it. And I think the biggest idea is when you're looking and consider a pre-launch, well, we're going to stage of business. And we'll dive into that right after I answer this question, which is, what are the benefits of Kickstarter and what could you potentially gain from Kickstarter, and see if that's something that makes sense for people watching this to consider if that's for them. But at the same time, I think the most important question in asking this is that when it comes to the product itself, I'm actually going to dive into the framework that we use for how we can assess and how we can create a product that's going to stand out. But the idea here is we want to understand, specifically related to the product, is this going to be something that people have any desire to want to support, or wait a little bit before they can purchase something that's equivalent on Amazon? So the idea here is, can you make your product interesting enough and stand out enough, or something that's relatable enough when you create the product and the campaign to connect with your audience, so that they're going to be interested in supporting you specifically, and also waiting before to see if it's something that they would actually support. So if it's share able to kind of back the screen sharing thing.
Yep, we can do that. I put it back. I'm just concerned because you were breaking up during a lot of that. So I'm just worried if we do both that we might not have enough bandwidth. But I can see the screen really, really well. So let's try it.
Let's talk about why this is an interesting model and why a lot of sellers have been considering this to launches, but at the same time launching the product in a way that allows them to be successful. So why is this favorable for sellers? So this is a traditional model, a traditional launch model, whether it's on Amazon or whether it's on Shopify. We know this model very well. First, we place the manufacturing order, then we pay for the order, and then once we have our inventory available, we begin to start selling. Specifically with something like Amazon, we invest in our launch strategy and we start selling. We start trying to get momentum so we can start ranking and then start being successful within the platform. And the idea here is that we hope that at some point we can be successful with this product. So that's what the traditional launch model looks like. And So why is Kickstarter appealing, and why has this been so interesting to a lot of sellers? Well, to understand that, it's important to understand how Kickstarter works. So with Kickstarter, it's going to be a little bit different. With Kickstarter, the idea here is that we're going to launch a limited time campaign of up to 60 days. So once we launch this campaign, it's important to note that we can actually launch this campaign without actually having the inventory. So we're going to explain that in a second. But the idea here is we launch a limited time campaign. Customers that are on Kickstarter, or customers that you're building in your community, will place pre-orders. And once they place pre-orders and your campaign is successful, you're going to get paid from Kickstarter within 15 days of the campaign closing. So let's say you're running the campaign for 60 days. At the end of that, 15 days afterwards, you're going to get paid by Kickstarter the cash in full that you've raised. So here's an example of a bath towel that raised about $330,000 on Kickstarter. They had some interesting materials and a really cool story. But so that's what they ended up doing there. But the idea is once you get the funds, then you can place your order with your manufacturer, and from there, once you receive the inventory, you can fulfill that to your customers and kind of close off the Kickstarter campaign. And then from there, like we mentioned earlier, you can then take this and launch to your preferred channel of choice. You can either launch on Amazon, Shopify, a wholesale, or wherever else kind of makes sense for you. So
Can I ask about on Kickstarter? If you don't raise your goal, don't you forfeit all of the money?
Yeah, so with Kickstarter specifically, if you don't hit your campaign goal, then you won't get any of the funds. So let's say your goal is 10,000 and you don't hit 10,000, you won't get it released to you. The other platform called Indiegogo, they allow for, let's say you raise $8,000 and not $10,000, they'll still release the funds to you in hopes that you can execute the production so that you can.
And what happens with that money? So let's say you raised 8,000, but your goal was 10,000 on Kickstarter, and you didn't get everything. What happens with all that $8,000 you raised? Does it go back to the backers? Or?
Oh yeah, it just gets returned to everyone. So what Kickstarter is doing is they have this model called all or nothing funding. So if you don't hit your goal, they assume that because you don't hit your goal, you're not able to fulfill fulfill the obligation of manufacturing and fulfilling to your backers. So that's why they just return it to everybody. With Indiegogo, yeah. And
so there's no way to lower your goal later. So when you're starting, you should probably start with a little bit of a lower goal and then over raise if you can.
Exactly. Yeah, that's you're way ahead. That's generally the strategy that we have when it comes to making sure that we're able to at least hit the funds and hit the funding goal, and then to be able to exceed the funding goal once we hit that.
Cool. Yeah. So please continue. I was just curious about that.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So what do we need to launch? And this is where it gets really interesting. And we touched on this briefly earlier. All you need to launch a Kickstarter campaign is a prototype, a working prototype. So in this case, it was this towel. Or if you're doing something, whatever it is, you just need a prototype that shows the product exists, that it's working. And then the second thing that you need is the campaign page. So this is, like we mentioned, equivalent to the Amazon product listing page. And so the interesting thing about this is that we really see this as a strategy. As long as your product is a fit, and this is what you want in terms of the benefits for running a Kickstarter campaign, we really see this as almost like a no-risk strategy, because the idea here is that you would have to create the photos, you'd have to create the copy. A lot of people would argue that you don't have to create video nowadays for Amazon, but I would think that, if you want to have a competitive Amazon listing, or you want to do video ads and you want to do something really cool for your brand, that video is going to be something that's required. So the idea here is you're going to be creating assets that it's going to be usable for when you choose to launch on Amazon, when you choose to launch your brand later on, and run ads or whatever it might be. So you're not doing anything extra that you wouldn't do otherwise. But the only thing that you don't need is you don't need inventory that you would need to launch on Amazon or on your own website. So this is an extremely appealing way to launch in order to get validation for your product idea, but also some of these other things that we're going to mention. So you don't need inventory in stock to do this, and all you need is that campaign page that we showed earlier. When we looked at the hot sauce example, that page is all you need to launch, and a working prototype to get approved. So because of that, this has led to a lot of really interesting benefits that we can talk about really briefly, but there's probably a list of 15 or 20 of these, but the top 5 I've kind of isolated down to why most people find this model and this pre-order model really appealing for their launches. So I'm going to go into these one by one and just kind of give a quick overview. So this is the project that we first launched. I mentioned to you earlier, Amy, and I might have sent this to you another time where you would have seen it. But the Arctic was our first campaign, and we ended up doing about 650 on Kickstarter, another 200-ish on Indiegogo, and about 90K in back-end upsells, so close to $1 million on that campaign launch. So why is this a better model, and why is this really appealing? Well, the traditional Amazon launch model requires a lot of inventory, initial inventory investment upfront, and for a lot of people, this might be challenging. Even for the people that are, even for sellers that are more advanced and have existing businesses that are pretty big, this can suck up a lot of cash. So the challenge is that this may or may not necessarily be successful, and if it isn't, then you've kind of taken on a lot of risk. With the launch model that we do for Kickstarter, the idea here is that all we need is a prototype. And because of this, we're able to invest a little bit, and that amount would have gone into getting invested into the assets for launch on Amazon anyways. We eliminate the risk by we get the pre-orders first, and this allows us to do this without actually spending $1 on inventory in advance. So this is really appealing for a lot of people, whether you're a new seller and that you're just trying to hedge risk, or you're an experienced seller. And the idea here is to also hedge risk, but at the same time, we'll talk about what that looks like when you actually are able to optimize cash flow, because that's going to allow you to do a lot more in your business. And I'm sure this is
Vance, back to your previous slide that you had where you talked about what you need, right? And you said you just need a prototype and a campaign page, but you do need a marketing plan, right? Like, I mean, Kickstarter is not, you need a plan to reach out to people. You need a plan for like, how are you going to get traffic to your Kickstarter page? So that's a consideration as well, isn't it?
For sure, yeah. And in terms of the strategy and what to do in terms of outreach, those types of things are important. But in terms of actual assets and things that you need to invest funds in, it's going to be the prototype, and to have that as your approval process for Kickstarter. And to actually launch the campaign itself, you will need the campaign page. Essentially, that's what we mean by that.
Got it. And so you shouldn't plan for any marketing dollars to spend?
Well, yeah, we'll definitely need to plan for marketing dollars. When we go through this process, we like to do a lot of the free methods, and I'll talk a little bit about this when we talk about the process. But the idea here is that we want to focus on things that are kind of a little bit more grassroots, but also allow us to develop stronger relationships with our our potential future community and the list that we're building. So.
Got it. Okay. So sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
No, great question. So you're way ahead. So this is one of the benefits, is to be able to flip the e-commerce model upside down and eliminate kind of the initial inventory risk that's necessary to do traditional launches. And then associated with this is cash flow. So when it comes to launches, I still sell on Amazon, so this is nothing against Amazon at all. Like, I'm still an Amazon seller, but when it comes to Amazon launches, often, well, the way that we look at launches is that the launch itself is more of a sunk marketing cost, and that's okay. And the idea here is, but the challenge here is that it often sets us back in terms of cash flow, and we have this kind of thing that we need to do to keep catching up on cash, the next order, and it becomes a cycle that's really challenging. And the bigger that you are, often this is a bigger challenge. So this is for newer sellers that are thinking, hey, once I reach a certain volume of sales or a certain income level, that this goes away. This doesn't necessarily go away. This is something that actually becomes a bigger challenge as you deal with higher and higher levels of wanting to grow. So with the Kickstarter launch model, this is really important, because the idea of launching and be able to get cash flow, get the cash in advance and get paid right away by Kickstarter allows you to have that cash flow up front. And if you raise, in most situations, a lot of people raise more than they need. And what they do is they're able to take this, and maybe if they want to invest in more inventory so that they have more inventory available for their Amazon launch, or if they have other initiatives that they want to take this cash and invest in, they can do that as well. So the idea here is that you're able to become more cash flow positive immediately. And this is going to be able to help you invest in whatever makes sense for your business at that stage in time. And often it's just a matter of investing in extra inventory, so you get ahead in terms of making sure that you have inventory available. And then once you go through your first cycle, then you have a little bit more cash to work with. So you're a little bit ahead when it comes to cash flow. And so those are the two main reasons financially why people find this model extremely appealing. And the second one, well, the third one is that this is something that we don't really think about much on Amazon. And it kind of leads to the question of why is it so difficult to build brands on Amazon? And the main reason is that we don't necessarily have access to these customers because they're Amazon's customers. So we have to go all these roundabout ways to get some insert cards in, get people opting into our mailing list through different ways with the product, and or do some retargeting stuff on our own website. Lots of different strategies that are allowing us to get the goal of being able to connect with our eventual customer. So. And it's really difficult. We noticed this when we had our own challenges with launching products. When I was in the second year of my business, launching multiple products in the kitchen category didn't make it any easier because people didn't know that I was launching my second product. I didn't have access to these people. So the fact that I launched a product and it was doing okay didn't mean that other product launches would become any easier. So in this goal with the Kickstarter launch, what we're trying to accomplish is allowing us to be able to build an audience that allows launching future products much more easily, or launching accessories much more easily, whatever it is that's going to allow us to do this over time. And the idea here is that once we build that audience, we can, anytime we want to launch something new, our goal is to launch it to them again and to be able to say, hey, we're launching a new product. Are you interested? And that's exactly what we did with our second product, which was the glasses that you mentioned. And with this project, we had about, it didn't seem like a very large number. We had about 5% of our original customers from the first campaign return, but what that led to was about $40,000 of sales. So initially, from the first from that launch, we saw about $40,000 worth of sales specifically from customers that were from our first Kickstarter launch. So that was really valuable. And then this is really brief. I won't go into too much detail, but if you have a successful Kickstarter campaign or a successful launch, often people want to share about this if it's interesting to that niche. So we had a lot of coffee publications and a lot of different types of coffee blogs want to feature us, and that led to a lot of buzz off of Kickstarter and off platform. So that's something that's super helpful when you're looking to build a brand that's going to be interesting to a specific niche or a specific audience that you want to reach, target, or market to in the future. And finally, when you're successful on Amazon, often it doesn't necessarily lead to success off Amazon. So the other benefit for launching on Kickstarter is it allows you to start setting yourself up for potentially diversifying or scaling on other platforms. So with us, when we became successful from these campaigns, specifically with the coffee products, we were able to start selling on our own e-commerce store. We had third-party websites reach out to us and wanted to carry our product on their own websites. We were able to start. Actually, we had a whole bunch of people reach out as distributors that wanted to connect with us and carry our products. So right now we have distributors in about 17 different countries, from Korea to to Dubai to Japan, where these people are actually buying products from us in bulk, wholesale, and they sell it to distributors or coffee shops within their own countries. So all of these are things that actually came up as a part of being able to launch on Kickstarter. So those are the reasons why a lot of people have been interested in Kickstarter, and that's one of the biggest considerations when it comes to potential of why you might be interested in using this type of model.
I love it. I think it's great. I think it's if you take your time and actually consider all of these things and you prep for it, you're able to really make a sound decision about whether or not Kickstarter and launching this way is the right way for you. So I love this thought. And, speaking of the things that I love, there are the Eventsy coffee cups that you sent me. I absolutely love them. My favorite is the one that's shaped it's like the medium size that's shaped like a wine glass on top. And it's the larger rim. I haven't tried the smallest rim one yet, but it is absolutely my favorite. And I thought it was so silly to drink coffee out of a glass instead of a mug. But oh my gosh, does it taste different? It really tastes different. It's a whole thing. So I thought it was so cool. I had to post about it on social media. So well done with those coffee cups. They're so cool.
I'm glad you like it. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And you guys did such a good job of building that Kickstarter page too. I mean, definitely a reason for people to reach out to you for help on these things, because you're really good at doing those organic things that matter, and not just pouring a bunch of money into ads, but really thinking about the foundation. your foundation is your Kickstarter page, your offer, the way you communicate what you're doing to your audience. If you do all of that right, that's stuff that doesn't cost you much except for some thought and some good copy and some good photos. You did such a good job with that on all of your pages. It costs you a lot less than in extra marketing dollars because you're not having to sell more except for to bring people to that page to check it out.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and
And
so you mentioned what are the best organic ways for people to grow their audience once they do something like this?
well, so we like to see the process, the entire launch process, as not necessarily just the launch itself. So our goal isn't just to have a launch, but as we're going through this process, the whole point here is to start building that audience and building that community that really care about what we're working on and care about supporting us. And that's what actually creates that desire to support us over buying just any other product. So a lot of the actual launch process itself is geared towards building that relationship and building relationships with people that care about our niche. And then eventually the idea is we get them to care about our product launch and then our brand. So that's going to be really important. So there's lots of different ways to do that. But I think what you're asking about is how to take advantage of this, this campaign to be able to kind of take advantage of that to build further reach. Is that the idea?
Yeah, so that you're not spending so much. Like in the beginning, I talked about, wow, like what I know of Kickstarter is that we need a lot of marketing dollars. We need a
Oh,
lot
gotcha.
so you said, there's a lot of organic ways that you can grow your marketing without having to buy a bunch of,
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram ads and video ads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What are some of the best organic ways that you've seen to grow?
Yeah, so these are the ways that we love the most. A lot of people don't talk about these because they like to use the paid ways because they're actually just easier or they're just quicker, right? So ads to a landing page, opt in, that works. So that's something that definitely is something that I don't want to rag on because we do this, but we do this later on. One of the early things we like to do is we actually like to start building and doing organic outreach to the main question we like to ask is where do our customers hang out, or where do our ideal customers hang out? So in a lot of situations, we might be able to find them, for example, in Facebook groups or in Reddit communities or specific forums that are niche to, let's say it's like a running or tennis club or something like that. It could be something like that. And we might even look at things that are in live communities. So like regular meetups where, there might be a meetup that has like 3,000 members, and we get in touch with like the person that is the leader of that group to be able to reach out to their audience and send out a survey to them. So lots of different ways. But the idea, the question to ask is, where does my ideal future customer hang out? And what is the way that I can connect with them directly? So we like to use Facebook groups a lot because within Facebook, there's lots of different types of groups that have really specific niche interests. So with our launch, we reached out to a lot of Facebook groups that had audiences of home baristas. So people that made, they were nerdy and they made coffee at home, or people that were actually nerdy about coffee that were baristas. And we started engaging within these groups to be able to what we like to call a community development, not only in terms of building the list, but the idea is how can we get some feedback from these people as we're developing this process? So this leads to one of the questions you asked earlier. So, how do we know this product is a good idea? Well, we can do this with actually not a lot of money at all. And it's actually free to be able to start reaching out to people in the audience, in the target audience that we're going to want in our future customer base, to ask for feedback about the product. And this gives us two benefits. The first one is it gives us real feedback from real customers rather than necessarily, for example, using something like PickFu, like, do you like this or do you like this? Or do you like this design or do you like this design? I'd much rather ask customers that are going to be within our niche that would care about our product in the future to be able to offer that type of feedback. So we like to do that. And that in doing this, not only are we building relationships that eventually say, well, we're going to do a beta round, or we're going to do, we're going to set out samples. Would you be interested? So there's a lot of stuff that this can lead to, but the idea is, where are your customers hanging out, and what is the smallest thing that you can do to engage them that makes them feel interested in participating. So we're not trying to sell them. We're just trying to get them to be interested in the concept. And from there, that's how we build that relationship over time to have them eventually support our product launch and then our brand as we launch more products in the future.
All right, awesome. Well, I think that we've pretty much covered everything today. The last thing that we have to ask is, Vance, how do people find you and learn more about the services that you offer to help people if they want to try a launch on Kickstarter?
Sure. Yeah. So you can definitely find me on our website, livemyplayground.com. I think it's up there right now. And if you're interested in exploring Kickstarter or the pre-order launch model as a way to launch an upcoming product, there's some free resource on our website. All you need to do is just to go there, enter your email, and you're gonna get sent some checklists and a video training series. And we also offer a masterclass that we've been getting a lot of positive response for, and that's the idea here is we're going to take you from just idea concept all the way to launching and getting funding, and what it takes to prepare you so that you're able to eventually scale to the next platform of your choice. So for most people, that's going to be Amazon or Amazon and Shopify. So the idea here is it's going to take you from product concept all the way to launch, getting funded, and preparing you for where you're going to be scaling on ecom eventually.
Amazing. Well, Vance, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, everybody, for watching and tuning in and putting up with our internet glitches today that we had. I'm so glad that it came through at the end. It was nice and solid for the rest of Vance's presentation. So that just, thank you, internet gods. We're happy about that.
Thank you.
Yay. But thank you, Vance, for being here today. And thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you guys next time. And check out Vance's website, livemyplayground.com. It's pretty cool. He's got some great free resources for you there and some paid resources, too. So check them out. And thanks, Vance, for teaching us all about launching with pre-orders. It's awesome.
Thanks, Amy.
All right. Bye, everybody.